see there are a couple people in there. Hello. I am wedging this clay to get water out so that I can actually use it, because I failed to do that before I started, and it is very wet. I need a more stable wedging surface. I could do this on the ground, but I figure that might be a little weird. And then once it's wedged, you just put it in whichever shape you want. I'm just doing circles today. But sometimes if I'm doing taller vases, I almost do like a rectangular shape to give it some height, or a cone shape. One. Looking for dry spots on this board so that I can use it. It was a lot of clay to wedge. Okay, so that's nice. We've got 4 balls of clay. Just gonna clean this up a little bit. So I will set this aside. I'm already goopy. I don't know why I'm attempting to clean either of my hands. Like it's a fool's errand. Okay, set this table aside. And now we are gonna look at what I made last week, and see if it's ready to trim, and get the bottoms all ready to go. So give me 1 minute and I can pull the stuff over. Okay, so we have this first thing, which is just a little almost cup looking thing that I'm going to use to put the coffee filters. We have a reusable coffee filter, so I'm going to use this as a little cup basically for the coffee filter, so that when it drips, it doesn't drip all over the counter. So we got to trim the bottom to make it look nice, but that's what we'll do with this one. It needs to be sprayed a little bit because it's not leather hard anymore. It's a little too hard, but that's fine. We can use the sponge to wet it down a little bit. And then this one, I am hoping I can get this off the bat. So every time you make a piece, you want to cut it off of the bat with a wire before you cover it up, because clay can act like a suction. So when it's wet on the bottom against a hard surface, it will like stick to it when it dries. And I did cut it off, but it seems like it's stuck, which means I need to get some water on the bottom of it, and then hopefully I can pull it off again. The problem with this is that sometimes it messes up the bottom, so there is a small chance that I may not be able to use this planter, because trying to get a piece off after it's kind of done this, I'm not very good at it because I haven't had to do it very often, so hopefully it works, but if not, such is life, and we can always make a new planter. I'm wetting it down so that it creates kind of like a slippery surface, so the wire is going to pull the water, and it will pull that water under the pot, and hopefully that will release it. And you've really got to make sure that you get it like you do a pull that's very straight and doesn't come up, because that's how you can cut an uneven bottom in your pot. So the wire kind of cuts into my skin, so we'll see if I can do this. I'm trying to think the last time I had to do this, and I don't even remember. I just know this is how you're supposed to do it. I don't even know if I've had to do this. So we'll see. Let's see. How do I want to? Trying to figure out how to do this without also cutting my hand open, because this wire is fairly sharp. I used to play violin when I was younger, and to be honest, these wires are almost exactly like violin strings, and so part of me gets very nervous because I have had violin strings snap on me before, and it's really scary. So I'm always very careful with the wire because it can go real bad. Just trying to see if I can get some water under there. Soften it up a little bit. Next time, I will remove it from the bat completely, which is technically what you're supposed to do, but I I've been lazy. And now you see what happens. Maybe if I go this way. See, get stuck. Okay. Well, I got it. The question is, how does the bottom look? Yee. Made me nervous, so now I'm all clumsy. Okay, let me dry my hands and we will look at it. Oh, my fingers. It like, the wire can really leave lines in your fingers. I don't even know if you can see it. There's like all these little lines from it digging in. It does not feel great. Okay. So, let's flip this over carefully. Oh, sweet. So, you can see where I cut it. Like that's kind of, there's these kind of ruffled edges from a second cut, but that's actually just fine. It's fairly even. It's fairly even around the bottom, and like if you look at it from the side, is that a good view? Probably not, maybe like this. But if you look at it from the side, see, it looks basically flat, which basically flat is what we're going for, so hooray. Okay. So now I am going to pull this off the wheel, get water everywhere, because why not? And we can start trimming. I need 3 more hands in order to do any of this. Cool, cool, cool. All right, I can do it. I'm going to set this down and then move the bat, and then we'll come back and start trimming. Okay, so today we're going to trim these 2 little pots. And they really shouldn't take that long because the trimming the foot of a planter is not that intricate, because really all you're doing is kind of creating a rounded edge at the bottom, and you want it to kind of stand up a little bit, so, and you want to put some holes in it. So it shouldn't be, that one shouldn't be too bad. And then the other little cup we're going to trim is not that decorative, so it doesn't really need much of a decorative foot. It really just needs to be rounded on the bottom so that it doesn't scratch the table or the counter. Although I hate our counter right now, so maybe I should scratch it up, make it all sharp, get a new counter that way. Okay. I am going to start with this planter. Now, when you are trimming, you want it to be leather hard. So that means that it's still malleable, but not so malleable that it falls over when you try to like when you touch it. So you want it to be able to trim, you want to be able to trim a little clay off, but if it's too wet, the whole thing just kind of collapses and you can't do anything with it. So obviously we don't want that. I think, so I covered it in plastic and left it a little bit longer this time to see how quickly it would dry. I think it's a little drier than I like, but we can fix that with a little bit of water, but we'll see. Sometimes it's just the outside that's slightly dry, and then once you get down one layer, it's still kind of wet. So what I'm doing right now is just centering this. So I'm using this needle tool to basically create a tiny little line that I can follow all the way around the pot. And I watch as the line is made to see if there are any gaps. And if there are gaps, then I basically measure the gap. So like if the needle tool stopped working between here and here, I would measure the center of that and then push the pot that direction, because that shows me that the needle tool isn't hitting all the way around. In this case, this side has a little bit deeper etching than this other side by me. And so I am going to find the midsection where the line becomes a lot lighter. So this is where the line is dark and the line is dark here. So right in the middle is here, and I'm just gonna very lightly push this. And it was like imperceptible. I know, I realized it didn't even look like it moved, but it did. And hopefully that makes it about as perfectly centered as we can get. And that line looks more confident all the way around, which is exactly what we're going for. So, now I just need to stick this in place. So I'm going to use this fresh clay and hold the center, create these little blobs, and then I scoosh the blobs down onto the pot, and all this does is create a little bit of anchoring so that as you trim the pot, you don't end up pushing it off the wheel, which is totally possible. And all my teachers have told me, oh, only use 3 things of clay like a triangle. And you know what? I say safety first, then teamwork. And I do 4. And I do big blobs, and I don't think you're supposed to do that either. But I've watched my pots fly off the wheel, and I'll tell you, it is not fun to watch. It's kind of terrifying, because you're like, oh, the pot's going, and all my work, no. So, you know what? Extra blob of clay for me. All right, have my trimming tool, and all I'm going to do is start to take away and refine this edge. And you kind of, so you have to, I think figuring out leather hard is probably the most difficult part, at least for me, is the most difficult part of pottery, because you can, you know when it's right, like you can see when it's right, but it's one of those things you have to do over and over to figure out, oh, is it right now? Is this the time? Are we there? And so it's just like trial and error, but when you do get it right, you'll get these really beautiful ribbon curls that hopefully, we probably won't see it in this one because I'm not gonna trim too much, but you get these beautiful kind of ribbon curls that come down, and just flow off of the pot, and that's how you know, like, oh yeah, I did this right. So the bottom here is wet, obviously, because I used half of a river to get this off of the bat. And so, in hindsight, probably should have done this one second, but whatever. We've committed now. So, what I'm going to do for this, so you see that there's kind of this defined raised edge here, so that's just fine. I'm going to create a foot inside, like an indented foot, which you should always do. Reason being that the more surface area that's touching the table, the greater chance you have of a wobble. And so we don't want a wobble. Wobbles are bad. And so I always do even a shallow foot, just enough to raise it off of the table. So I use the needle tool to create a line so that I knew where to start, almost like an outline. And then I'm just going to very slowly go in and start trimming away this middle part so that I can create a foot. And you see these ribbon curls that are happening? That's what you want. Real good. Real good. Okay. Ooh. Sometimes they get stuck to the wheel and then they make a weird noise. You also have to be careful because as you are trimming, obviously I'm cutting away clay here, and so if your the bottom of what your piece was too thin, you can cut through the bottom, and I've done that. I feel like everybody has done that, and it's just one of those things, like, even when you're experienced, it happens. Like, sometimes you just misjudge the depth of it, so it's always sad, but it happens. All right. Hi, Ryan. How's your day going? Okay, this bottom, I think, is getting kind of thin. I'm going to lean down and try to tap it and just hear it a little bit. Sometimes you can hear the thickness by tapping, and that helps a little bit, and you can also see if it indents. I have a hat on, so if you see a flash of white, it's my beanie. It's really cold down here. So it starts to sound more and more hollow the thinner it is. I am going to make an educated guess that I can do one more kind of shallow cut, and then I'm going to stop. Maybe one more. See, this is how it begins. You think maybe one more, just one more, and then there's a hole. It's okay. Gotta trust yourself. Okay. All right, so that is enough for that one. Really doesn't require much. and we will slow the wheel down and start to clean some stuff up. So that was just to smooth out the little bumps on the side there. And then just get the rim of the foot. Clean the tool off. Okay. And then smooth this out. Trying to get some of these lines out. Those lines happen for a couple reasons. Sometimes the tool has like clay on it and it creates a ridge. Other times you're just not holding it quite even. I think this might have been a little column A, a little column B, but you should try to at least get the lines out just so that it looks more finished. I mean, you don't have to, but obviously each piece is up to the person who made it. But I like to get the lines out because I either want the pattern to be intentional or I want it to be as smooth as possible. So trying to find the balance here of overdoing it and making the bottom too soggy, which will also bite me. If I make the bottom too wet, it will crack when it dries. As clay dries, it contracts, and so if the clay is drying at a different rate at the bottom versus the top, then it will contract down here and contract more slowly up here, and then it goes and cracks down the center. Okay, I'm gonna call that. And the last thing we're gonna do on this is create some holes. This second to last thing. Create some holes and then stamp the pot. Oh my, okay. I have a new stamp coming. Not here yet. Very excited for when it does come. Okay. So, a planter needs holes. Because when you water plants, they need to have a drainage hole, or else you will suffocate the plant. So, what we are going to do now is drainage holes. And then after I do the drainage hole, I will go back over the pot, probably not tonight, or at least not on the stream, because it would be really boring, but go back over the pot with this sponge and buff out all the lines. So, okay, let's see. In order to do this, we have to use this little tool, this little hole puncher tool. So I have two sizes. I have a bigger one and a smaller one. I think this is the smaller one. Let's see. Nope, this is the smaller one. Good thing I checked. So this is the smaller one, and what we're gonna do is go in the inside the pot here. So I'm taking this and going inside the pot, and then I'm going to punch a hole angled down so that there it creates like a little drainage spout. I'll try to do this so that you can see it, but this pot is actually slightly larger than my hand, so I'm worried about dropping it. Okay. Let's see. Alright, I'm just gonna go for it because it's hard to see exactly where it's gonna go. Oop, there we go. So there's the hole, and then we just pull this back out, or we can push it through. This one is going to break off. So there's the little hole, and there, yeah, that's the drainage hole. You can do one or two. Trying to decide if I want to. I usually do two, but I think one might be enough. And it's a weird angle, so I'm trying to decide, should I do two and risk dropping it, or should I do one and call it good? Two is better for airflow. So, I will try and do another one. So I just usually do it across from the one I already did, go. There's the second one. Just patch this up a little. And that has 2 holes now. So it's got a hole on that side, right at the bottom, and then and a hole on the other side. Thanks, Will. Yeah, and then a hole on the other side so that it will drain properly. That is not easy to try to show and also do at the same time. Okay. So then I'm going to set this pot aside for a little bit and do like the finishing little touches after and not here, because it's really it's very meditative to do and probably very boring to watch. And also I have to hold it in a way that you probably wouldn't even be able to see it. So, thanks, Linda. Yeah, the hole puncher tool is really cool. You can also make, I think I might try this year. You can make little like lanterns for like tea light lanterns. You use the different size hole punches to make different patterns. And then you can put a candle in it and it kind of shines through. Anyway, it's a cool tool. Okay, so then now I'm going to work on this one. This should be much more straightforward. This is that coffee filter holder. So there's these nice little lines on the wheel. I don't know if you can see them, but they're these little rings, which work great when your pot is exactly bloop, the same size, because you can center it basically perfectly, which really makes me happy. However, this pot is probably not perfectly centered, so you know, the best laid plans. All right, so we're gonna center this one, like just check to see if it's centered. And it is. Hooray. Haha, worked. And this is a much smaller pot, so I am gonna do just 3 3 pieces of clay, because if this one flies off, I don't particularly care. Sorry, little pot. It's the truth. It's the truth. All right, so, oh my gosh, I'm being very disorganized and messy today. This whole table is you can't even see it, but this whole table is like something has fallen over and there's like piles of clay. Feels very much like my brain today. It's just like stuff there, just slightly in shambles. So I always look at the side, or look at the sides and like run it in a circle on the wheel first before I start trimming it to figure out what type of shape I want to give it. So this is a simple shape. It was meant to be a simple shape, and that's just fine. I think the bottom is not super thick, so I need to be careful there when I'm cutting the foot in, but I can kind of decide what I want the bottom of it to look like. And since I'm not super attached to this, I'm probably going to try to kind of angle the bottom out and then create a little foot. Just, I mean, why not? For fun, right? So we'll see how dry the clay is and then go from there. And so all I'm going to do is cut into this and kind of cut the excess clay away first. See, this is why I use 4. I don't know, they always say to use 3, and then stuff starts tilting. It's like, just use 4. Don't get it? Okay. Yeah, see, that's on there like a rock. Okay. So now I'm going to just kind of round the bottom here. And I want to kind of go, what do I want to do? I want to like have this be a foot, but then have this side go in. All right, so I'm going to start cutting in here. So in this instance, I'm creating like a raised, kind of a raised foot. And then I'm going to soften this edge as I pull in the foot. Okay. So now you can see that there's actually a little raised edge here, like it looks almost like a little mug or something, and the foot has quite a bit of height to it, and it's indented. I don't know the right word to use, so I'm just using words that sound right to me, so I hope it makes sense. But like the cup comes down, it goes in right here, and then there's this like raised foot. So now when I set it down, it kind of gives that illusion of floating a little bit, right? And it just makes the profile a little bit thinner and a little bit more finished. So, because even though this is just going on the counter in the corner and it's just gonna hold a coffee filter, there's no reason for it not to look good. We should enjoy looking at it. Okay, so now I'm going to cut into this foot, like into the center, just to finish this off. Those curls are nice. That's what we want. Probably could be a little more damp, but that's okay. And I like to sometimes go in and not do that. It's okay. Give it a little bit of a slanted edge. Just sort of, I don't know, looks good. Why do I do it? I don't know, I like it. Feels right. Thanks, Will. Yes, it is nice to have nice things. I agree. And I think that just because something is functional doesn't mean it can't also be beautiful. I'm gonna give this a little bit of a wetting it down just a tiny bit, because you can start to see striations of like when the clay is too dry. There's like a dark and light kind of striation that happens, and I'm letting it run for a second so the clay can soak it in. And you can watch the shine kind of goes away on the clay so that you know it's soaking, the water is soaking in. All right, this is gonna be almost done. Okay. And then I'm just going to kind of get this angle on here again. And round off this edge with my finger. Just want to flatten it. There we go. I'm just trying to round this edge out so that it doesn't scrape the counter. Even this out a bit. So close. I noticed that there was a little raised spot, and so I'm trying to buff that out so that it sits flat. Okay, that should be good enough. All right, so that is the foot of the pot, and then we will mark it with the stamp. I can get it off. There we go. And oh no, stamp is in here somewhere. Of course it's at the bottom. Of course. All right, so I have this little stamp that you probably, there we go, that I use, and I'm gonna slightly wet the bottom here, and then try to get this in here. This stamp is not very sharp, so sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, that didn't work great. That's okay. I'll still know it's mine. There's like a little stem and the top of the flower on there that I can see. I have a new stamp coming that should work a lot better. So anyway, that's what that looks like. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to turn it, but it's got this little foot on it here, and then nice little kind of elevated bottom, and that's ready to go. I do not fire these at home. The place where I take classes lets you fire, and so I take it there, and I'm trying to get like probably 15 pieces together and fire them all at once, because then I can glaze them all at once as well. It takes 2 firings and a glazing minimum to finish a piece. So it's not fast, and if you can do them in batches, it's better. Okay, so I'm making chicken soup tonight from scratch, which is very exciting, and I have probably 30 minutes or so before that needs to go into the next phase. I got to put all the veggies in. So what I'm going to do next is actually kind of great for this offshoot clay that I have. And what I am going to make is not very fancy, but very necessary, and that is a glaze sampler. So every time you are firing with any type of clay, different clays have different types of mineral and things in them that make them different colors, like porcelain versus, say, a red terracotta. And the differences in the clay impact what the glaze looks like. So I have, I think, 4 or 5 glazes that I'm going to use on these pots once I get them fired. And it's important to know what the glaze is going to look like. So in order to do that, you make a glaze sampler. And all that are little tabs that you can glaze and fire so that you can get an example of what the clay looks like, or what the glaze looks like when it's fired, both by itself and with different colors over it. So you could mix a white glaze and a blue glaze, and sometimes, depending on the metal components and the chemical compounds in the clay, the white over the blue turns a different color entirely. So all that to say, it's really important to know what the glaze overlays look like before you start glazing things, because you'll think that you're making one color and you'll get something totally different. And if you go to a class or to like a studio, typically they will have a glaze sample library. And since I have my own glazes at home, some of which the class doesn't have, I am going to create my own little library here. That was a lot of talking, just to talk about how I'm going to basically make a ring. So it's a necessary part, although not my favorite. All right, so oops, if I shut that down entirely. So this just helps the bat stick, keeps it from wobbling away from me. All right, so this is the ball of clay that I am going to use. And we'll still center it and pull it. This time we're pulling it out. But I still want to center it and make sure that it's even on all sides. And then the other thing that we'll do today with this, you don't really have to trim these, but what we will do is create kind of curvatures, hopefully, so that you can see how the glaze looks with different like a little bit different textures as well. So still want to cone it up and back down, and I'm going to do this a couple times because this clay sat and I did wedge it, but I don't have a lot of faith in my wedging, if I'm honest. At least not when I don't have a table that I can really slam it down on. I go back and I watch the videos, like watch these streams, so that I can see how I'm centering and stuff. It's actually really helpful. I was surprised. Ooh. Oh man, I just splashed my face and the computer. Awesome. Very good. I'm just trying to center this. I don't know. Really shouldn't be that hard, but some days are harder than others. Okay. Okay. And now I'm just going to actually put a hole down the middle and pull it out, because I'm just trying to create a ring that I can cut into little sections. So you might be able to see that this is actually the bat. So this is literally just a ring. And just gonna pull that out till I get the width that I'm looking for. And then I can shape it however I want and kind of cut it into pieces. So, I am going to kind of flatten this out a little bit. I still want things to be basically the same thickness. So I'm just taking off excess clay. And then kind of straighten this up. And I do want to bring this up just a little bit because I want to be able to test multiple clays. Okay, I'll probably do one more pull there. Okay. So, just, there's a little piece of clay that I'm just want to smooth back in. But, basically, this is a sample ring. So, I am going to, I'll cut it off the bat and then cut it into little sections and then leave it like this because it'll all be cut up and it'll kind of shrink up, and then it'll just create these little tabs that then I can glaze. And that way I can see, I can have a better understanding of what my glazes are going to look like. So, like I said, these don't have to be perfect because it's literally for a little sample library. So, just have my knife and I will start cutting. I don't know if you could hear that in the background, but my partner Jason is playing Fortnite and I feel like he is losing. He just yelled and it sounded like the yell of someone who has been killed. Why am I doing these this wide, you may ask? And my answer would be because, I don't know, started cutting. This is the size that it went to. Now I'm thinking about it and it's freaking me out. Probably should have measured it. It's gonna drive me bananas. Okay, it's alright. Yeah, that one's really big. Should I make it? Yeah, I'm gonna cut it. Shoot. Okay, so now they're all cut into little strips and I'm gonna just let this dry. I don't need to do anything else with it. So I'll let it dry and shrink up, and then these will become individual little pieces, but excuse me, I can test the glaze on. So that's all I got today because it's almost 6:30 and my soup needs the veggies put in about probably 15 minutes and I gotta go cut it up. So I'm gonna go do that, but I will be back at latest next Tuesday, possibly earlier this weekend if I have some other stuff I want to throw. I've been drawing in my ceramic book, so I've got some ideas for other shapes that I want to try. But anyway, I appreciate you all coming in. I hope you're all having a somewhat and hopefully calm Tuesday. And if you're in the US, doing what you can to relax since we're waiting on election info. So anyway, it will be good to see y'all next week. And thanks for coming in. I have to like bide my time because I'm very clay-y and don't want to touch anything. All right, we'll see y'all later. Have a good night. Bye.